I thought it would be interesting to, I was walking down the street in Boston about 5 years ago and passed the seminary. I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to do a story about a priest whose girlfriend kind of shows up and like gets him involved in this like completely bizarre international plot. And so this is basically the backstory part of it. It tells you kind of how these people met. Danny hadn't seen her coming. Just when he'd started to think his life was on moral cruise control, Sonia had slipped through his defenses like a hooker in a nun's habit. He'd figured it was God's way of telling him he's still a punk-ass Southie, not yet worthy to call himself a soldier of Jesus. Besides, he'd been so focused on the head of the Charles he couldn't see anything to that finish line. The final day of the 2000 regatta was October 22nd, an unseasonably warm Sunday afternoon. Danny had placed in the top 5 for club singles on Saturday and was feeling pretty cocky, showing his Dorchester colors to those Cambridge pussies. But Sunday was the main event, Director's Challenge, quads event, and Danny had pulled a 5,000-meter course with a canonical 4, his master's crew from Harvard Divinity School. 26 teams had put in at the Wolf, and his boat had tucked into the tight Elliott turn at just under 14 minutes, placing the C4 in 3rd position for the finish. But 20 meters downstream from the bridge, a black Vespoli skull carrying the aptly named Wrecking Crew had cut his bow and everyone had gone swimming. The Israeli girl had been in the crowd on the lawn of the Cambridge Boat Club, laughing hard as Danny washed up on the beach. He remembered that Indian summer afternoon. It smelled like grilling hamburgers and spilled beer on the old boat club's upper deck. The girl had emerged from the crowd at the post-race barbecue carrying 2 red plastic cups of Sam Adams. Most females made Danny uncomfortable, but this one set off every alarm in the building. Tall and almond-eyed, a loose mane of golden curls backlit in the late afternoon sun, she'd approached him the way a lioness courts her mate before sinking her teeth into his throat. Danny had looked like an ice sculpture as she handed him a beer. Boys are so predictable. Say what? You so could have avoided that collision, you know. Could I? Of course. Her accent was proper English, her voice deeper than most girls. She wore a blue hooded sweatshirt, zipped in the front but not high enough to cover a distracting white bikini top, and khaki shorts that extruded long, muscular legs. I know exactly what was going through your head the moment those guys cut you off. Danny felt himself jostled by a phalanx of burly jocks pushing through the noisy crowd and spilling beer on his Tevas. He'd hardly noticed. You do? Yes. The girl had leaned in close to his ear, close enough for Danny to smell the musky fragrance of afternoon sun and body lotion on her tanned skin. She'd enunciated her words slowly enough to make him shiver. Ramming speed. Then her mouth opened into a perfect white smile and the girl laughed. Exactly what would have been going through my head. Guess I should have been born a boy. That would have been a waste, he'd replied, thinking immediately how stupid it sounded. Her sharp nose crinkled as the irises of her eyes turned purple and reflected light from the Charles. Cheers. She touched the rim of her cup to his. I'm in the class you teach at CSWR, Culture and Faith in Central Asia. Helps pay my tuition. He felt relieved to be back on familiar ground. Do you know that you were the first American teacher I've met with a chutzpah to point out that the most important mathematicians and scientists of the Middle Eastern classical period weren't Arabs? Yeah, it's true. Most were Turkic or Persian. Many were also musicians or poets. Omar Khayyam, for instance. But any educated Muslim wrote in Arabic back then. Well, maybe they had to, she said. And maybe Khayyam was Muslim for the same reason Copernicus and Galileo were Christian. To keep their jobs in their heads. It's gratifying to know somebody's listening in my class. He extended his free hand to her. I'm Danny. Sonia. She'd taken it with a firm, boyish shake. But there was nothing masculine in the way her eyes assessed his defenses. I've been told you're a Jesuit. A novice, actually. He felt exposed, a little embarrassed. I'm at HDS on a fellowship. In? Danny cleared his throat. Proto-Indo-Aryan languages and the collision of Eastern and Western spiritual traditions on the Silk Road. Sonia had pursed her lips, nodded gravely. Collision is something at which you excel. She'd waited for him to finish laughing before arching an eyebrow. Do you mind if I ask a personal question? Danny had shrugged, cringed at what might come next. What does a Roman Catholic novice, find so fascinating about Indo-Aryans? What a relief. I thought you were going to ask if I'm gay. Sonia's mouth had relaxed, parted slightly as her eyes penetrated his clerical defenses. That never crossed my mind, she said. It's clear what you like, but not what you want. Danny remembered feeling the sweat rolling down his side. And that's exactly why I'm fascinated by language, because we can communicate what we want and need and feel. It's our basic human survival mechanism, isn't it? Sonia's eyes had clouded. Survival is a complicated subject. Then she quickly flipped some mental switch, smiled up at him as if the storm had never happened. Like much of life, wouldn't you say? I mean, I'm wondering if it would be considered bad form to invite a man of the cloth to my birthday party next week. When you figure that out, let me know. I'm right off Arsenal Square. Shouldn't be a big crowd, no presents. Date? I was hoping. His face had flushed. I meant, what day is it? 31st. Sonia's calculating eyes had turned liquid amethyst in the sunlight. Sorry, I'm being wicked, aren't I? I'd expect that from someone born on Halloween. His expectations had proven well-founded. There had been no birthday party that evening at the graduate students' housing on Garden Street. Only Sonia waiting for him in a devastating little black dress and 2 tickets to the Boston Ballet. She'd even paid for the cab. Danny should have seen that coming. Or maybe he had. Thinking back on what had happened that night, as his moral resolve had crumbled like old church missals, Father Daniel Callan remembered hearing very clearly in his head, like a distant Gregorian chant, the tortured prayer St. Augustine had written in his Confessiones 1600 years earlier. God, grant me chastity and continence, but not yet.